Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Question Box for, Friday, the 23rd of July, 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Shane Bailey. The Question Box is your weekly gaming talk show where we bring into question not all, not most, only the most important video games news, topics, and trends. Every week, I'm joined by one good friend from the Australian and New Zealand gaming community to detail, discuss, and dissect the latest topics from our beloved industry. And this week, I am very, very happy to bring on a good friend of mine. He is the editor-in-chief at Stevivor. It's Mr. Steve Wright.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. You can basically claim Canadian at this point too. Australian, New Zealand, it's New Zealand, Canadian,
New Zealandian.
However that works. You've got 3 countries now.
That's it, yeah.
And I'm well. Thank you. How are you? Sorry.
Good.
I'll stop
I'm well.
hijacking your show.
That's it, yeah. We just hop-scotched over to New Zealand and then just a really big leap across the Pacific to Canada. I'm good, mate. It's good to have you on the show. You're one of the first people I reached out to, and stoked that you're able to give us your time. So thank you so much for that.
I'm very happy to, and I'm in lockdown. You're in lockdown. It's not like it's hard. I'm not like sacrificing a Friday night to not to do anything better, because that makes it seem like this isn't good. But you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Okay.
For those who don't know you, who haven't had the pleasure, why don't you introduce yourself and tell them all about Stevivor?
Sure. I am the editor-in-chief of Stevivor. It's Australia's. I was going to say the countries, but I just said 3 countries. It's Australia's most read independent video games website. It started 20 years ago when I came here on a working holiday and did not write about video games, and slowly morphed into what it is today, which is insanely weird. So thank you to people who read and engage with our content, I guess. And I play video games way too much and love them, and I love my Xbox, and I have a PlayStation and Nintendo and a fancy gaming PC, which you can't see behind this camera, but this camera is a laptop because my fancy gaming PC doesn't have a webcam. I'm a writer, not a streamer, so I'm sure I'm going to embarrass myself profusely over the course of this next hour and a half or so, but sorry, I guess, and bear with me. How was that?
That was great. I've linked the website in chat. Highly encourage you all to go and check it out. It is stevivor.com and at Stevivor on all the social channels as well.
Very bad at plugging. Very bad at plugging.
That's right.
Thank you for that.
That's all right. I'll do your job for you. Anyway, like we discussed last week, the question box is divided into 2 segments. The first is the top 3. We'll go over what we believe to be 3 of some of the most important games stories in our industry from the past week. And then in the final segment, question time, we'll bring into question one specific theme or topic to discuss. And this week we'll be going over Nintendo, their recent announcement of the Switch OLED edition model, something like that. And if they're playing it too safe, maybe resting on their laurels a bit, we'll have a juicy conversation there. Steve, are you ready to start there? We'll dive into our top 3.
I am. Let's go.
Let's do it. Beautiful. Well, we'll start with EA Play Live. This was, I think, the cap to EA's E3 or summer gaming efforts. They had a live stream early hours for us here in Australia and announced a bunch of things. I'm going to head over to Stevivor.com, where Steve has a bunch of great articles recapping it all. Let me get the video up for you guys so you can at least see it all. I'm really good at producing and hosting at the same time, as you can tell.
Well, while you do that, I'm just going to candidly ask: Did you wake up for EA Play Live at 3 or 4 in the morning?
Oh,
yeah,
God,
neither
no.
did I.
No.
If it was like at the time of everything else E3, I probably would have just like dragged myself out of bed to do it, but not this time. It's way too long after the fact. I like sleeping. It's lockdown. We all sleep till like noon right now anyway. So.
That's it.
We just caught up afterwards. It's fine.
So one of the first things they came out and announced was Grid Legends coming in 2022 is a new racing game from Codemasters, a studio that EA recently acquired for, I think, just over $1 billion. They outbid Take-Two for for the pleasure. And Steve Wright over at Stevivor writes, Grid Legends was today announced by EA and Codemasters at their EA Play live event. The title is described as, quote, a high-stakes driving experience that combines thrilling, unpredictable motorsport, incredible race variety, and an immersive driving story that puts you at the heart of the action. Steve, when we've seen EA attempt story in racing games before with Need for Speed in the past, safe to say that it hasn't always landed completely well. But what are your thoughts on Codemasters giving it a crack?
It's unusual because, like you said, it like the likes of Ghost Games and Criterion and Everett, like whoever has done Need for Speed has tried and failed, or maybe done something resembling a good job of a narrative racing story. Codemasters is generally not that. They do just like traditional sims or arcade sims, and I'm kind of intrigued to see what some fresh blood will do. And they have actors, they have like this very specific plan for what they want this to be. I guess from the very short reveal trailer that we've seen, but I'm optimistic about it. Like I like different takes on a kind of sort of established genre or an established mode within a genre. And Need for Speed's not been delivering lately, so maybe Codemasters will step up. And you know, like that's absolutely why EA, as part of their attempt to bolster, you know, like their sporting package, not just the FIFAs and the Maddens and maybe if you look hard enough, the NHLs of the world, which that never happens. They are making a push into racing. Sorry.
I know you're really sad about that factor with NHL.
I know, but so like Codemasters is part of EA's push into racing, and they're not just, you know, delivering another racing sim like an F1 20. They're always a year behind, aren't they? 2021, not 2022.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
they're not like the rest of EA's portfolio, right? Yeah, they're actually, which
confusing.
now seems backwards, right? It's like, why do you have to be so sensible, Codemasters?
They have that with the Codemasters, but now they have some sort of like narrative, you know, like driven racing thing. So I'm excited about it. What do you think about it, Shane?
Yeah, no, I think particularly just around the acquisition of Codemasters, I'm most excited to see them hopefully take, you know, the resource that EA can provide and deliver an experience that's better than what they've been able to do in the past. I think they're one of those teams that just hasn't quite reached their full potential. I think, you know, they haven't reached their final form, let's say. You know, they're sort of, yeah, they're doing the annual F1 series, but then they're alternating between dirt and grid, and they always land around the 7.5, 8 out of 10s. And it's like, if you just had a bit more time, or just, you know, a bit more like resource, or we're able to really give it a hot go. Maybe just I think just more development time. Then maybe that's something they could do. But to your point, EA's, you know, I think keen on really milking them for all it's worth. I hope it's all for the better. And look, I think, you know, grid coming back and having a bit more time in the oven can't hurt at all. I think I would love for them to take a leaf out of Xbox's book, right, and just give those teams more time to deliver something rather special. For the most part, Turn 10 and Playground have been on the 2-year dev cycle between Horizon and Motorsport. And now Horizon 5 is coming off, a 3-year dev cycle, and we haven't had a Forza Motorsport since 2017. So Turn 10's seemingly getting 5 years to make their next entry. Maybe Codemasters can come along. They're a studio of about 700 odd developers, so they're not wanting for manpower. I think it's just the focus and the time and the resource to really create something special. So he's hoping EA doesn't force Frostbite down their throats, and they're actually given the time to create something really special. But I think that, you know, this is going to be interesting. I have no faith that the story mode in a racing game is going to work, but I would love for them to prove me wrong, I think.
Well, your breaking point on F1 2021, that's the year. It seems like we're perpetually 2020 right now. It hit and miss with, you know, depending on who you ask. So and, you know, like me talking about a hockey game, who would have thought? But, you know, like this was the first year with NHL 21 that EA Vancouver got to bring like a career mode into this like long established hockey game, and it wasn't great, especially compared to like a Journey, I think it is in FIFA, and you like
yeah.
nothing compared to like what NBA 2K is doing, but like it's a start. So like that we're I don't think it's enough now with a sporting game to just like iterate and like make that blade of grass or that like shard of ice look better. You have to find ways to be more immersive and to engage players. So like it might be close, it might not be quite where it needs to be, but at least it's a movement towards that mindset.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I think it'll be a matter of time, right? It's still early days for Codemasters under EA, so yeah, give us a few years to, I suppose, make a judgment call on how well that's panned out. Moving on now, they also announced seasonal updates. I'm not sure you had a news story on this one, Steve, but just keen to get your quick thoughts on both Knockout City getting a season 2 and Apex Legends seemingly getting a lot more support. A title that's been doing really well for them. And Knockout City, I think, sort of captured the imagination of a lot of people. It seems to have a very like developing community around that one, doing really well on Twitch as well. Have you tried Knockout City? And yeah, what are your thoughts on, I suppose, EA's free-to-play efforts?
I've tried it very fleetingly. I think the problem that I have is that I'm ancient, Shane. I'm so very old, and it's 8:30. It's past my bedtime at this point. I have limited time to play paid or non-paid games, free-to-play games. And like where I do enjoy an Apex Legends, 100% love it. Would happily jump in with anybody that wants to have a go, as long as you acknowledge that I'm not that great and you'll probably die. I like that kind of experience more than like a Knockout City or a Rocket Arena, as an example, from EA as well, or like a Hyperscape or a Warzone or like there's so many of these kind of games of varying different genres, but that same mentality of a free-to-play cosmetic, like dump all your time into us, maybe spend some money and like level up. I feel like kind of something has to give at this point, and we're seeing no end to these things. Like X Defiant from Ubisoft was just announced. Like there are all these games in the same kind of space competing for your time and your energy, and I don't know if I have enough energy to give. But that's not to say if you do enjoy a Knockout City and you enjoy it more than like a shooter, and there are the myriad shooters of this kind of free-to-play variety to play, I'm talking in circles at this point. I'm all for it. I don't know if I think there's so many coming out all at the same time. I don't know if a lot of these are going to survive, but that Knockout City gets season 2, that's something to be optimistic for, right?
Yeah. No, I totally see your point, right? There are so many players in this space, right? The games as a service that are constantly evolving with their seasons and their battle passes, and yeah, obviously as someone who worked at Ubi, I saw that up close and personal with Siege, a game that I still to this day adore and probably forever will. And for me, it comes down to your point, also time. I have a bunch of friends who are really excited for Battlefield 2042, which I will talk about in just a moment. For me, it's also like, well, like, are we really gonna get into this? Because I'm not willing to fork over the 100 Australian plus dollars that it's going to cost me to get in at day one, when I'm also very keen to continue playing Siege, play Halo Infinite, which is going to be free to play, and probably also be buried in Back 4 Blood, which is coming to Game Pass. So yeah, for Battlefield, it's going to take a lot to get me hooked, or get me invested, I should say. And then Jason, thanks for the raid, my friend. Hope you're well. And then on the other side, even if, like to your point, even if it is free to play, can I coax some of my friends to come along with me? So at least I'm hanging out with them and having a good time. And also, what is the time investment required to get good at this particular title and find the fun, which I think is a fair criticism of a lot of these live games, where it can feel like a job, right?
Yes, and Knockout City's not even free to play, is it? It's like free to try, isn't it? I think there is a cost component.
Oh, there you go. See, that's how little I'm paying attention, Steve.
But like, So I've mentioned all these free-to-play games in this space, and then like Siege is not free-to-play, but it sort of is. And like I've been playing so much Dead by Daylight because they've put out a Resident Evil expansion, and it's like free on Game Pass in its core, but then you buy expansion. There's all these things that are like, if not entirely free, they're like free adjacent. And like Back 4 Blood's a great example. And we just previewed Aliens Fire Team Elite. So many plurals in there, which is not a free-to-play game, but it's very much in the style of Back 4 Blood. But if you have Game Pass and wait 2 more months, you get Back 4 Blood, and it's not, you know, just like a Back 4 Blood, Left 4 Dead style game. It's the next game from the developers who made that genre, basically. Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So like there's so many things trying to compete for your time. I don't know how. You have to basically pick a market that will shift from one established thing to your thing if you want to try to survive. That makes sense?
Yeah. I think, you mentioned, like, you know, is there enough to go around? Like, there are only so many players, right? And I suppose everyone's trying to take a chunk of the same pie, I suppose, unless you're targeting completely different markets. So I think that's why I appreciate something like the Knockout City, is that it's a G or PG rated game, right? Like, this isn't a mature violence title, so it can target a younger audience, you know, who of children or you know, kids whose parents aren't allowing them to play Warzone or Apex for that matter, or Siege, you know. So I suppose the market will dictate whether it can cope with this many titles vying for people's times, but seemingly there's no limit to the amount of money to be made or time to be taken away from the youth, because all these games just keep coming out. And I'm not sure if there are many adults who have the time to invest that much. At least I don't. I have Siege. It's like a sport, right? It's like picking a sport. Like, if let's say Siege is cricket, and I'm wholly invested in cricket, it was like, well, hey,
already lost me. I'm lost.
It's like hockey, right? Let's talk in Steve's terms. It's like, and I played field hockey for more than a decade, so we have that in common. You know,
not the same thing, but that's fine.
Well,
like, I'll go with it. All right. Sorry. Continue.
Siege is hockey. I love hockey, and then my friends say, "Hey Shane, come and play soccer / Apex." I was like, "Well, I'm already invested in Siege, and it's going to take me a long time to get good at this new sport. Is it going to be worth my while?" Yeah, and there's only so much time in the day, so I totally see that consideration.
And like, a Knockout City is like, I guess if you're a dodgeball enthusiast, it's up your alley. Rocket Arena was amazingly fun, and I really enjoyed it. But there was like all these paid components to it, and you're like, oh, this isn't gonna work. It's not like, if this is fun. I'm playing it for free in a preview right now, and it's only like $20 or something to play, but like, I wouldn't pay $20 to do this because I can do it. Like, it's that thing of like, there's a finite amount of people and money and willingness to do something. So I don't know. I'm the old school yell at clouds old man who would just like rather pay for a game and not have to pay for microtransactions and just get it. And like, I'd pay like a PlayStation 130 or whatever, you know, like next or current gen games cost now, just to like have a game and be done. Like, and I have it all, and I don't have to worry about all the stuff kind of rotating nearby around it in case you're enticed to do it. But that's I yell at clouds. That's fine.
Anyway, speaking of games vying for your time, though, we got another look at Battlefield 2042. We have I think it was an open beta. Is that right, Steve? Coming in September, I think it was.
Yeah. So there's an open
brand
beta
new portal, which is offering a bunch of content from older releases.
Yes, so they haven't given any. There's an alpha coming and an open beta, but the open beta is for people who pre-order, which by the very definition is not an open beta then, because it's closed to some extent. So I'd imagine that the beta is going to be like a 2-phase, like, you know, 2-sectioned thing where like the pre-orders go first and then everybody else gets to jump in at the end, if that makes sense. So like, that's cool. The game comes out in October. The betas are in September. the game follows in a month later. Probably the more interesting thing is Battlefield Portal, which I guess is what Ripple Effect has been concentrating its time on, which is
That's right,
Dice
yeah.
LA.
So the Dice LA recently renamed to Ripple Effect, and I believe this studio is still being like the studio head is Vince Zampella from Respawn, or he has some.
I think he's
involvement.
overseeing all of them.
That's
like,
right.
So
yeah.
he still has control of Respawn, but he also is like this is kind of like Respawn Light. This Ripple Effect.
Yeah.
From my understanding.
But anyway, from your article, Steve, quote, Battlefield Portal is a community-driven platform within Battlefield 2042 that will let you create and find fantastic experiences made by the series' creative and passionate community. Dice detailed in a recent blog post. Maps available inside of Battlefield Portal at launch will come from some of the favorites from Battlefield 1942, Bad Company 2, and Battlefield 3. So obviously appealing to hardcore Battlefield fans who have been around for a while, but also I think just setting themselves up to allow the community to create more of these, Battlefield moments. Am I right?
Yeah, and they've said it's like coder friendly. That's not. It's non-coder friendly. Is probably the better way to
Right.
describe it. Like you can do things without having like extensive knowledge of how to code a video game. I don't like it's I don't know if I'm like I guess that's just custom matches is the non PR
that's what I was thinking.
way to call it. But then like you also get to tap in like I love Battlefield 3. That was probably I think one of the first that was one of my first overseas trips to go and see a Battlefield game, and it was Battlefield 3, and I was just like, oh, this is the like, and it was like the Xbox One had not even come out yet, and I was like playing on a dev kit. I'm like,
2011, I think Battlefield 3 was, yeah.
I will have like a special place in my heart for like, and one of the screenshots was on like one of the like a destroyer or something, and I know that level in Battlefield 3. I'm like, I know that map. I love this game. Like I'd happily jump in, and of course, like they're all modern visuals. I think was the quote there. So like they're up-resed or whatever they need to do to make it look like a Series X or a PS5 kind of style experience. So that's cool. Like it's in addition to Battlefield, which I really like. Like I have a place in my heart and time for a Call of Duty where it's like the TTK is time to kill is like super short and just like bam 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 just go for it, or like a Battlefield where I'll go with some friends and try to actually strategize and play the long game and oh, there's a tank over there, let's see what we can do. So I'm excited for Battlefield in general. The 2042 bit of it, I don't know. Like I think I'd rather go modern or past instead of future, but we'll see how we go. And if you don't like the future bits, you can jump into Portal and play some old school stuff. So like everybody wins?
Yeah. I think this is only good for the longevity of the title, and particularly, we were just talking about how crowded the games as a service space is already. As a premium title, that isn't free to play or has that low barrier to entry, then I think this bodes really well for it. Myself, I've never been a huge fan of Battlefield multiplayer. Like I enjoyed it back in the day, and the one that I think I probably put the most time into actually was Battlefield 1943, which was an Xbox Live Arcade game from the franchise that had like 3 maps. It was like Pacific Warfare. I just remember I think it was either really cheap or came with like games with gold once, and I jumped into that and quite enjoyed it. But I've got plenty of friends pushing me to dive into this one, so I dare say I'll probably be there. Whether I'll try this or not sure. Probably not that invested in it, but look, if the community comes up with some amazing game modes, I'll jump in.
Well, and this isn't an Xbox ad, I promise. No hashtag ad. But this is kind of meant to be its live service thing. But also, if you have Game Pass, you have EA Play. If you have Ultimate, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you have EA Play. Yeah. And like Battlefield 3 and 4, I think, and one of the Bad Companies are on Game Pass. So
I think all of them at this point.
Yeah, like are all of them? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, so like if you could almost do this Battlefield Portal as a Game Pass subscriber without getting the new Battlefield and just play the old games, which I get. Like there's nothing wrong with that either. And obviously EA is opted into this Game Pass thing, so they obviously don't mind that either. So I get you could do both. You could do either, and either is all of these things are acceptable.
Yeah, I think so. As long as you're playing their games, they don't really care how you're going about it. They're getting your money or Microsoft's money some other way. Speaking of getting your money, they also announced the long-awaited remake of Dead Space, which I can't say I'm terribly excited for because I hate horror games, Steve. I'm such a pansy. Anyway, your story goes, the rumors were true. EA Motive is hard at work on a Dead Space remake exclusive to PC and current gen consoles. Also, bravo for actually, saying current gen consoles. Too many places
and
still
people
calling it next
called
gen.
us out on that, and it drives me nuts.
It's
last
current
gen was last generation. That's what it means. Last generation. The last generation of consoles was PS4 and Xbox One. Sorry.
Amen. The title will use EA's Frostbite engine, for better or worse, and promises, quote, jaw-dropping visual fidelity and improvements to gameplay while staying true to the original. We go down to another quote from senior producer Philippe Duchamp, who says, quote, the Dead Space franchise made a huge impact on the survival horror genre when it was released 12 years ago, and I came to Motive as a fan first to specifically work on this game. We have a passionate team at Motive who are approaching this remake as a love letter to the franchise, going back to the original and having the opportunity to do so on next-gen consoles excited everyone on the team. As we look to modernize the game, we've reached out to dedicated fans and invited them to provide us with feedback since the early stages of production to deliver the Dead Space game they want and for new players to enjoy as well, end quote. So a lot to unpack there, modernizing the game, but they still want to be true to the original. Obviously, there was a report saying that a lot of this was inspired by Capcom's sort of, the re-energizing the Resident Evil franchise into this, this blockbuster sort of critical and commercial success that it is today. But yeah, Steve, you're very excited about this. What excites you the most? Is it it's just coming back, or does what Philippe is saying here get you sort of hopeful for the future of Dead Space?
Well, first, it was a quote. So he said next gen. He's wrong. He meant current gen, but that's fine. I'm equal parts excited about this as not excited. And I guess the exciting things are I had a crazy day, so I didn't get to do more about Dead Space, and I would have loved to. But like IGN got to speak to the devs, and they're trying to progress Dead Space's like limb cutting removal, like that's the core of the game basically. They're trying to iterate on that to bring it into modern gameplay, and they're looking at the Ishimura, which is the ship that most of Dead Space, the original Dead Space, is set upon. To I think they looked at they said there's something like they were looking at how the corridors were originally designed, and they had to cut corners and like rejig things just because of the limitations of technology, which are likely not an issue now, or there's a way to fix those. So I'm excited about those things, and it's good that you brought up like Capcom and RE2 and RE3, Resident Evil 2 and 3, because those games, I've lost all my lighting, there we go. Those games, they're not old. They're PlayStation games. They're original PlayStation games. They're very jagged and polygonal, and like they're old school. And Dead Space came out on 360 and PS3. So yes, they're dated to a point, but they still were modern games for the sake of argument. Where we have like Capcom with RE2, it's Resident Evil 2 still feels like Resident Evil 2, old and new, but it's drastically different. It's the air of Resident Evil 2, but with modern gameplay, and it's evolved the gameplay, but not made it feel like an entirely different product. Looking at the admittedly very short teaser trailer for the Dead Space remake, it looks the same. And that's where I'm kind of worried, because I can just go back on 360 or on my Xbox One or on my Xbox Series S or X and just play back compat and get, from what it looks like, kind of this same experience. And I hope that there's a lot different. But if it's the same storyline and the ships all kind of look the same, and like even to the point where like cut off their limbs, like that was an iconic thing in the original, and it looks exactly the same in this teaser trailer. Is it just like a prettier looking version of the same game that I've played? Because I have that game. I can play that on Steam right now. I can go back to Xbox. I want that Capcom experience.
Yep.
And the teaser doesn't look like that's happening. But like, and we don't know anything. But I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, totally. And I think I'm going to bring up a weird reference here, but it's the same way how I feel about, pardon me, the Lion King live action movie. Lion King is my favorite movie of all time, right? I've got two quotes. I've got two quotes tattooed on myself, right?
So do I. Oh no, I don't. Actually, I lied. No, I don't. Sorry.
But that film was a carbon copy of the original. I'm like, why does this exist? The music isn't as good. The acting and just the way it's composed isn't nearly as masterful as the original. I much prefer something like Aladdin, which comes along and does something a bit different, right? Like this genie is different to the Robin Williams genie, and this Jasmine has slightly different motivations than the original Jasmine. It actually makes it more interesting. Same thing with the Jungle Book film as well, I would contest. But movies aside, I'm in agreement with you. Like I want to see a remake that is made in the sense that if the creators were to from scratch build this game today and try and execute the vision that they had back then, what would they do? They wouldn't make the same game with the same 360 era mechanics, right? They would take advantage of everything that they have at their disposal. So, yeah, I hope we get that, for the fans' sake and for your sake as well. I hope we get that sort of Capcom-ification sort of treatment as well. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Oh, it looks like we may have lost Steve. Let's check Discord. Oh, there you are.
Oh, sorry. Was that me or you? I full on panicked. I'll admit it. I just didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I go to Twitch and figure out what's going on? I got your point.
Maybe it was me. I had a little pop up as well, but the stream is still going. I think we're okay. All good.
Well, good. Okay, so you deep cutted with a movie. I'm gonna similarly deep cut you with a movie.
Go for
it. If Dead Space, the 2022, we don't have a date yet, remake can kind of do what like Star Trek did, I'm all for it. So like Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, Uhura, etc. When J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot did the 2008 Star Trek, you're like, okay, well, it's the same characters, it's the same, but it's different. They're obviously different. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be on board with this. They found a way to take the same setup and twist it on its head, which was still true to the original, and carved a way forward for this new thing. And like, so they've said in the Dead Space, like, you're Isaac, you're on the Ishimura, you're looking for Nicole, like all of these things are established in the original game. If they can give you a different take, just like a different way of presenting it that is cool, I'm on board. Like, I love Dead Space. Dead Space is the best. Dead Space 2 is all right. Dead Space 3 just went off the rails. Like, Dead Space is very much like a Resident Evil clone in all the best ways, in like RE4, that is, where RE4 is like the best action oriented Resident Evil before it, like 5 and 6 just like went overboard, and like Dead Space 2 and 3 followed that same trajectory. So if, like, that's the sweet spot. So if you can find this like horror and action combo and do something new, which isn't just like retreading exactly the same ground, absolutely excited. And EA Motive does some really good stuff, so I'm like, I'm excited, but I'm also just like, I want it to be more than what I think it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that the quotes to come from Felipe, they're saying all the right things, right? Like, they seem to be really taking a lot of TLC with this one's, getting feedback from the most hardcore fans. So yeah, I think that's really exciting, and it's sort of like allows us to very cleanly segue into the sort of the wrapper of this entire topic with EA, is that, are they on that upward swing? They sort of hit rock bottom for a bit there with things like Battlefront 2 microtransaction controversies. We had Mass Effect Andromeda landing with a thud, Anthem landing with an even greater thud, that has seemingly sort of plummeted BioWare's reputation for the most part into the ground, and they really have to build that back. But we see a lot of decisions from them, or at least recent announcements, that seem to indicate that we are on an upward swing. I think of some great games in recent history, like Apex, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, It Takes Two, which, albeit not from an internal studio, but from Hazelight, which they're the publisher with. So and just this Skate, Dragon Age isn't going to have microtransactions. Are we seeing this sort of renaissance of EA coming back and being one of the good guys in the grand context of things?
You're an adorably optimistic person, and I applaud you for that. Okay, so like I'm gonna unpack what you've just said. So, God, BioWare, Anthem was not great. Anthem is not a live service game, but Anthem is actually like a decent game if you play it for the story and then just immediately drop off. So like I think Anthem got a bit of hate. And I like Mass Effect Andromeda. I didn't have any of the bugs anybody else experienced. I think it's a great game, especially if you've played Legendary Edition. You should absolutely go back and play Andromeda. You should absolutely. The new Mass Effect and the new Dragon Age are so far off. Like they don't count for goodwill right now. Like they're like an idea in someone's head, like a Elder Scrolls 6 with Bethesda.
Right.
Like okay, like just
point.
wait your turn. It's not gonna happen. Apex Legends, great. Yeah, Respawn's amazing. Respawn basically made amazing shooters in Titanfall and Titanfall 2 that EA just like put out to die alongside every other shooter that ever existed. So like they've done well with Apex, but like I don't feel like that's like yay Respawn and like boo EA for doing this to Respawn. So we get free to play Apex instead of like Titanfall 3. I'd rather Titanfall 3. So like okay, Skate 4, like, it's been announced, but it's not coming out anytime soon either. So like there are all these like we should have goodwill for EA, which is admittedly doing better. But like when you're comparing EA to like the likes of like a sexual harassment laden Activision Blizzard or Ubisoft at this point, like you don't have to do a lot to like be in good graces right now. So
the bar's very low.
But like and I will applaud EA for what it's doing, but I will also criticize EA for what it's doing because I want EA to do better, and I want Activision to do better, and I want Ubisoft to do better, and I want Microsoft and Sony, and I want everybody to do better. I want there to be like the hype contained. I want like transparency out there. I want like It Takes Two is amazing. Hazelight, like I like EA originals. There are amazing things that EA is doing, but like I don't want to say that they're on an upward swing. I'm like they're kind of like coming out of like a stagnant or a declining curve. They're like I'm gonna give you like a this kind of thumbs up instead of a this kind of thumbs up.
Right.
Like you get like a half thumb.
Okay,
like
no, yeah, I think it's totally fair to say that it's probably too early to make the call. By the way, this trailer that's on screen right now is Lost in Random, which is one of their EA originals from Zoink that they showcased at their EA Play Live event. Looks really creative and won something at the Tribeca Film Festival or something. Anyway, they were really proud about that on the stage anyway. Looks really creative, and yes, in the same vein as something like It Takes Two and Fee before it, or Faye, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Unravel
as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely adding a bit of variety to EA's portfolio. No matter how small these games might be. But I totally acknowledge that it is early days, and I think I'm sort of coming at it from the perspective of those last few years. Like you describe, Anthem and Andromeda maybe not as low or as like maybe receiving a bit too harsh a criticism from the wider industry or community. But I think it is fair to say that probably the last few years around that Battlefront era and Anthem era might have been 2017, 2018, probably their low point in the company's history. In fact, I struggle to think back much further and think because they were doing great stuff 360 era, like you said, Dead Space. They had things like Mirror's Edge and Dante's Inferno and Bad Company as well. That's when Battlefield was in its heyday with 3 and 4 as well. So I think I see it as like, to your point, very early signs of that curve sort of coming out of the ditch. But I don't know, based on what they've said, and to your point, I'm very optimistic. I'm only going off what they're saying, but I just look at all of what they're saying, and it's like these are all positive things from EA. I can see them really, if they stick to it and actually stand by their word, then we could be, I don't know, celebrating a lot of what they're doing in the next 2 or 3 years.
I don't mean for you to feel bad. You should be optimistic, and I'm just a jaded old like journalist dude who just like has to try to like wade through the BS sometimes, and maybe comes out a bit too jaded. We broke the story about Battlefield 2's microtransactions. Just full disclosure, I guess. So like for every Battlefield 2, there's like a Jedi Fallen Order. So like EA is admittedly doing some really, really good stuff, and I'm not meaning to like take a dump upon it. Like they are doing really cool things, and I hope they continue with this mindset of being good, doing better. God, that's horrible. You know what I mean? I'm gonna shut up now.
All good, all good. We'll move now into, went way too long on EA. We might only have time for a couple of stories. I might save the last one. But I do want to dive now into your coverage of Psychonauts 2, specifically your interview with Tim Schafer and some of the others at Double Fine, as well as your preview coverage. So as we know, Psychonauts 2, a product of Double Fine, a storied studio that was acquired by Microsoft back in 2019. This is their first release, which was originally crowdfunded on Fig started, which Double Fine owns. Is that right? Or they had a part in?
I don't know, Ben. You may have listened to the Friendly Fire Show, which is the Stevivor podcast, where Ben Salter suggested that, and I was surprised by that yesterday, and I didn't think to look into that more today. So possibly, I know they did like a Reddit AMA where the someone important from Fig was also with Tim Schafer talking about stuff. So if they're not somehow directly tied together, they have at least a very strong relationship.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Because it was Fig started, it is coming to PlayStation 4, PC, I think, Switch as well, if I recall correctly. I should probably go to the bottom of your preview here, Steve.
The hilarious thing is, because now it's a Microsoft owned studio, they have an Xbox One version and an Xbox Series S and X, which can hit up to 20 frames and 4K.
And 120, right? There's a 120 frames option.
Sorry, what did I say? 140? That's not a frame. 120 frames and 4K. But on PlayStation, it's a PS4 game, which will be backwards compatible on PS5. So
no native PS5.
You kind of see where the corners were cut, which I think is funny.
Yes, Windows PC, Mac, Linux, Xbox One, Series S and X, PS4, backwards compatible on PS5, so no Switch, and of course will be day one in Game Pass. So Double Fine is a team and a studio that I have a huge amount of respect for. I think back to, I haven't played yet the original Psychonauts, and I know from your piece here, Steve, that you are yet to as well. But just quickly, my history with Double Fine, I actually most enjoyed a lot of their smaller titles that they released after the, I suppose, I wouldn't say failure, but sort of the less than favorable commercial success of Brutal Legend, where they pivoted and broke up their team into their studio into smaller teams and popped out like a bunch of really creative stuff like Stacking and Iron Brigade. You had Broken Age and The Cave around that time. Massive Chalice is one that I absolutely adore as well. So yeah, I've enjoyed a lot of Double Fine's things. I haven't played Psychonauts, but I'm really keen for this, mainly for the fact that we don't have a lot of fantastic platformers on the Xbox platform. But Steve, keen to dive into the preview that you had, the time you had with Psychonauts, and how you feel about Double Fine and what they have coming up.
Yes, let's talk about the preview first, just to get it out of the way. Or should we? Maybe I'm gonna change this. I'm crafting my piece in my mind.
The rundown, Shane.
So I played Psychonauts 2 for like 4 hours. I played a bit of Psychonauts on Xbox because it's on Game Pass. I swear to God, I'm not being paid by Xbox to talk about Game Pass, but man, it's great because you can also play Grim Fandango and
Full Throttle.
God.
David Tentacle,
all the other ones.
They're all on my to download list on my Game Pass app.
Grim Fandango if you have not played Grim Fandango, you should absolutely play Grim Fandango. And so I like Double Fine for those things, for like for the humor, for the dialogue. It's I don't want to say this because like he's awful now, but like the Kevin Smith when I was young and I thought Kevin Smith was hilarious. But Double Fine stuff actually stands the test of time. Is that a good way to put it?
Sure.
Double Fine makes really funny, really timeless stuff. Like the interactions are hilarious. Like they should sign a deal with Netflix and just make TV shows and movies and stuff, because everything they do is amazing. So where was I going with that? Oh, so I played Psychonauts 2. I'm like, I like this. Like, it's really funny. I like the characters. It's really good. I feel like I had to claw the controller to do combat and to do some of the platforming, and it didn't feel like as modern as I wanted it to be, I guess, being a modern game. And then I played Psychonauts 1, and it's similar, but it's very much improved, obviously, when you're comparing 1 to 2. So like that's good, at least. But like, it's weird. And then I talked to Tim Schafer, who's the head of Double Fine, and I talked to Lauren Scott, who's a senior systems designer, and they just have so much passion that, like, it's weird. And you try not to have this affect you, because like you're trying to compare you're trying to like critique the game for what it is, and but like what they said just kind of like closed the gap a little bit in my brain. I'm like, I don't know if I like this. And I'm like, I like it a lot more now. If that makes sense. So
I think it totally does. Like, I think of films that I'm not necessarily like, I think I like that. But then you like listen to director commentary, and they talk about what they wanted to achieve with this scene and this storytelling style, and you go back, and that's sort of, playing in the back of your mind. You're like, oh yeah, I totally am making the connection now of what, and you appreciate it on a deeper level. So maybe I think a similar thing, right?
Well, yeah, and like this is a game like 8 years in the making. It was in Tim Schafer's brain, like when he made the originals, and like they crowdfunded it, and they were gonna release it, and then Double Fine got acquired by Microsoft, and then Tim was like, all this, like as soon as we were acquired by Microsoft, it was limited integration, I think was his well, not his terminology, I guess it was Microsoft's terminology that he has embraced, and to him that means I just have money and I don't have to worry about the financial things now. And Microsoft's looking at that, and rather than me spending time on who is going to pick up this game or how I'm going to pay checks in 3 months, like the finances are covered, and I can just be creative, and we can put this boss battle back in, and I can do this, and we can do this. And and it was funny because we were talking, and there was an article in the Guardian from, I don't know who wrote it, actually. That's horrible. I should know. But they interviewed Xbox head Phil Spencer and Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty, and Matt Booty was saying, like, if Tim Schafer wants to make Psychonauts 3, we'll absolutely let him make Psychonauts 3. We're not going to make him. Like, he can if he wants. And I mentioned this to Tim Schafer, and he's like, I didn't know that. Can you send me this link? I want to have that in case, Matt ever approaches me and I need to talk about this. So it could all just be speak, but it seems like Microsoft is really just letting Double Fine do Double Fine.
Yeah.
And he said, Tim said that as well. Like, they don't want us to do Halo DLC. They don't want us to port games. They came to us because they saw that we were making Stacking and Grim Fandango and all the games that both of us have been talking about, Shane, and they want us to do that for them. And it's filling a niche within Xbox Game Studios. And they're, like, just go off and do your thing. And, well, I'm sure, like, at some point, maybe they have to rein them in, but it doesn't seem like that's happened, and it won't for a while. So, like, it's all just uplifting and great. And they've made this huge push for accessibility. So if you want to turn on invincibility, like, there are all these things you can toggle in and on or off to enjoy the game in your own way. And Tim also was saying that, like, I was watching people on Awesome Games Done Quick, like, completely bypassing giant chunks of our game, and I was upset about that to begin with, but then I realized, like, they're investing all this time and energy to do this. Why should I detract from that? Which is really cool. And, like, we're not just seeing it in Xbox games, we're seeing that in, like, Ratchet and Clank, we're seeing it in, like, The Last of Us Part 2 had insanely amazing accessibility options. It's a really, like, I was kind of hesitant to give EA any points, but, like, I'm absolutely, like, eager to give this to the gaming industry at large. Like, accessibility is great. Like, the more people enjoying things, the better. Go for it.
That has been a huge focus from most publishers in recent years, right? Like, even, like, again, former Ubisoft employee here, but yeah, Ubisoft has done great work with that in recent years. I think about all the different reticle options in Siege at the moment, and everything being done in the Assassin's Creed franchise as well. So yeah, huge props. And again, I think we can point to so many different examples. You mentioned The Last of Us. I think of the adaptive controller from Xbox as well. Yeah, it's becoming a massive focus. And I think that, only bodes well for an industry that is looking to grow even more than it is currently, right? So huge props. And just your point on the studio acquisition and this limited integration, I think it's I mean, they're not gonna say the opposite, right? But you see it from a lot of Xbox game studios that have been picked up, and also people like I'm forgetting his name, but the head of Housemarque recently, who noticed we don't have to worry about Ilari Kutanen, I think his name. Anyway, they don't have to worry about where the next paycheck is coming from. I remember Fergus Urquhart from Obsidian speaking to this, Brian Fargo from In Exile. They spend a lot of their time pitching to publishers, right? And so you look at someone like Obsidian who was playing the field, really. They were over with I think it was EA with Alpha Protocol, and then Ubisoft with South Park, and then they're over with Private Division and 2K for the Outer Worlds, and they're just trying to make it work. They're trying to keep everyone's jobs, really, and now they don't have to worry about that. So
Stevivor is not comparable to Double Fine by any stretch of the imagination, but we scrape by on some ad money, and sometimes the ads are too invasive, and you're like, oh god, I feel gross about this. We need to fix this. But the simple fact of the matter is, all the ad money we bring in, I'm paying out to people to commission to write pieces, and when they're doing that, I'm basically writing for free myself, which it's fine. That's not a big deal. But every week is can I pay the bills? So and I know it's not to anywhere near the same extent as a Double Fine or a Housemarque or anybody, but I understand that, and and we don't even employ people full time. We commission people to write pieces. If you have a studio that you are paying day in and day out, and I'm assuming Tim Schafer is one of the nicest. It was one of my best interviews ever. He's the nicest, sweetest person in the history of the world. And I truly believe that he was constantly terrified that he would not be able to pay his employees, and he would have to then have to tell them sorry guys, I guess we're done. Having that over your head all the time is exhausting. So that he just doesn't have to worry about that and can be creative. For us as players of the games that you might not like a Psychonauts, it might not be completely up your alley. I'm not entirely sold on it, but I do love Double Fine things. Stacking's amazing. There's so many good games. And completely changing the subject, you mentioned a whole bunch of games that were a result, and there's a level, at least in Psychonauts 2, that were a result of a game jam that Double Fine has. It's called Amnesia Fortnite. They just take 2 weeks.
Yes.
They split up into teams. They pitch games to Tim and to the general team, and they vote on the ones that they like the most, and they prototype them and build them, and that led to so many games and a level in Psychonauts 2. So I like that. I like that. It's good.
I want more developers to do that. I want to see, you look at the versatility of someone like Double Fine. I also think of someone like Supergiant as well, who just jumps from genre to genre seemingly. Clay Entertainment are really good at that as well. And we're seeing that, that AAA studios, sometimes they might be pigeonholed into genre, but they're still just at its core creative people who occupy the staff within these teams that can go do other stuff. You see that with Guerrilla pivot from Killzone to Horizon, and then you see it with Playground going from Forza to Fable. So I would love for more studios to adopt this, maybe in between projects, so we see smaller teams break away. Obsidian, again, another fantastic example, is Grounded, to come from a team that's primarily done RPGs. So I really love this idea. I think it's a fantastic model, hopefully for the future, for more teams than just Double Fine.
Yeah, well, Microsoft related, God, what was it? Oh man, jeez, Ninja Theory did that game that failed. What was it?
They did Devil May Cry. They did Enslave. They did Heavenly Sword.
No. Was it Ninja Theory then? Oh, it was that. It was the team shooter.
Oh, Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge.
Yes,
that was Ninja Theory. Yeah,
it wasn't great, but I'd like that they can take a small team, an offshoot of a team, and try something, and maybe a Grounded. Grounded's still going. I'm not really one for Grounded, but I like being able to see people be creative and not just make shooter game, make next thing, FPS mandatory.
Yep.
So that's good, and and I like that Microsoft's letting teams, I guess, have chance to fail and not just like that's not a strike against them, I suppose.
Yeah, I think
I hope
when
I
you've
hope that
got
follows.
when you've got like these larger IP that can sort of carry the company for lack of a better term, like the Halos and the Minecrafts and the Forzas, you are afforded that level of that flexibility. Hey Matt, thanks for joining us. Hope you are well. And yeah, no. To your point, I just want to see more risks being taken as well. I think that's why you see Xbox is able to go and court, developers to work on more niche things like Tell Me Why or As Dusk Falls, which is still on its way as well. So I think, I suppose the more creative freedom that is allowed from these acquisitions, that can only be a good thing. And we're going to get, I'm really looking forward to Psychonauts 2 and whatever comes next from Double Fine. Also, Outer Worlds 2, or Avowed, which will be some of the first RPGs from Obsidian in a long time that has like the complete backing of a huge company like Microsoft. Yeah. So they're able to flex their creative muscle.
Conversely, I'm sure Housemarque's going to be able to do something neat and crazy, experimental, hopefully, and like even like an Insomniac who has maybe a Overdrive in their back pocket, or a Spider-Man or a Ratchet gets to do something as well. Like we have these things. Here's our cool other idea that we can try. So it's like, I think that's good. And I'm kind of dropping into some of your next talking points maybe, so I'll shut up and we can get
that's
to
all right. Yeah, we'll quickly cover this one, and that is Tencent buying Sumo Group for 1.3. Oh, actually no, more than that. $2 billion. Where did I get the? Oh, it was 1.3 US billion dollars. $2 billion. Story from Luke Plunkett over at Kotaku.
That's so much money.
It's a lot.
So much money.
And I mean, this is a big team as well. I think similar to Codemasters, they're pushing, close to 1,000 staff. Let's see if I can bring up the story here. So British company Sumo Group, whose various studios have worked on everything from Hitman to Forza to Disney Infinity, has been bought by Chinese giant Tencent. Pardon?
To Xbox Fitness.
Sorry. Crackdown 3.
I love a bit of Xbox
Fitness. Forget Crackdown 3. Reuters reports.
No, not Crackdown 3, no.
The purchase is merely the latest from Tencent, who in recent years have invested or taken ownership of gaming companies like Riot, who they completely own, Epic Games, 40% share, Dotenod 23%, Acti, Ubi, and Paradox all 5%. So, this is a massive corporation who has its fingers in a variety of different pies, and just, I think, not to their credit, but like not to plant any fear, but they seemingly don't have any or haven't been forcing themselves and sort of what's the right term? I think, coming in and forcing change within these organizations, right? They identify that, hey, this is where growth is about to or is happening right now. And they just want to be along for the ride. And it's smart to sort of, get visibility on what all these companies are doing, particularly a Chinese company, sort of planting their seeds in all these Western companies as well. I won't get into, the more real world implications that might have. But I suppose just quickly, Steve, we spoke about acquisitions with Double Fine. This is another huge one. We mentioned Codemasters earlier. And on last week's episode, I discussed with Ryan Betson from The Pulp Culturist whether there is a studio arms race. I believe there is. And he was in agreement. Herman Hulse seems to disagree. But what's your take on this current, this huge wave of investments and mergers and acquisitions that have been happening? I think ever since Microsoft kicked it off way back in 2018.
Like, one, anyone who says that this isn't happening is lying. Two, I don't think it's like Microsoft kicking it off. I think this is like, we're seeing this across so many entertainment. What's the word
mediums,
I want?
The different.
Thank you. Yeah. So like, industries. Like Fox is Marvel is Disney now. Like it's like, and I think there's a larger conversation to be had there where like, yes, there are concerns that could stifle creativity if you're like in the movie. This isn't your movie show, Shane, but if you're talking about movies, like if you're getting like the best directors in the world to direct a Marvel movie, okay, we probably could be getting some more culturally significant things coming out of these people. But I get, if you take it to video games, I can't help but go back to what Tim Schafer said. Like I like an entire weight has been lifted off my body, and I can actually think about making a game instead of like all of the terrifying financial decisions or something to that extent that he said. like there's I guess like I don't want to touch on this either, but really like people are concerned about like the China aspect to Tencent, but also like all these reports of Tencent buying Sumo is like they're gonna have a hands-off approach. So if you take that for what it is, it's exactly like a Microsoft thing. Like, here's some money, do your thing, keep at it, we'll fund you.
Yeah.
And on that level, I'm down for it. But like there is a lot, I guess, to consider, and it's relatively new in the life cycles of all of these acquisitions. So maybe there's a horrible, like a whole bunch of horrible negative connotations that we haven't thought of yet. But right now, it seems okay. It's not like Sony's acquiring Housemarque to make, like you have to bring back Killzone now, or
Right.
Microsoft is saying to Double Fine, you have to make the next Halo game. Like it's like you're still making what you're known for making, and exploring your creativity. And same for well, I don't know, Sumo's. I guess I don't know if Sumo's known for.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a lot of support work, right? And I don't think they have that. You don't look at Sumo and think, oh, yeah, they're the creators of that game. You think, oh, I guess, yeah, they've done a bunch of stuff, and they seem to jump around from publisher to publisher, just picking up work where they can. Their most recent game, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is Sackboy, Big Adventure on PS4 and 5. So, yeah, they get the opportunity at, some more, I suppose, more meaningful titles like that, and then not just, helping get these other games across the line. Back on,
they can do a competent platformer.
Yeah.
Like that, and I Xbox Fitness was a joke, but I absolutely loved Xbox Fitness. So if they want to try to like find a way to bring something like that back to market, that's also good. So
yeah,
and they have, this could be a very talented team of people who didn't get to exercise a lot of creativity because they had to work in these established things, now having the freedom to do something. And like we can do a platform, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. We haven't had our chance to put our own mark on it, but now we can. So maybe they do, and maybe it's going to be great. So I think that's okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring up this page from Nico, who are a big sort of Asian games industry and analyst sort of group. They know their stuff. This was just basically one slide showing you exactly what Tencent is involved in. They've got huge ownership of some of the biggest PC published games as well. And like we mentioned earlier, their fingers in a lot of pies, particularly in the Western market. So yeah, I mean, Tencent, a name that gets thrown around as well. And there's there are still some fears, again, none that I'll touch on here. But yeah, I think to your point, Steve, like for the moment, I have no fears of any kind of monopoly. I think consolidation is probably a separate topic. Again, I need to do more research on this, but just looking at I feel like the monopoly subject got brought up with the Bethesda acquisition, right? Or the ZeniMax acquisition by Microsoft, and that had to get past the EU and clearly defined whether it was a risk of becoming a monopoly or not. I look at it, and I think if you looked at the let's say the revenue generated from Xbox and Bethesda IP compared to the rest of the video game industry would be a very small piece of the pie. I also look from a headcount perspective. Xbox and Bethesda, I think, on a studio side, are sitting about 4,000. I know for a fact that Ubisoft is pushing 20,000. So yeah, I just can't see the monopoly argument. I think you look at potentially like the Disney, Marvel, Fox thing and think to yourself, well, maybe they own the most valuable IP. Again, I just don't think that's the case either. You look at, the top 10 most played games in the world now, and hardly any of them, outside of probably Minecraft at this point are owned by Microsoft. So yeah, I just can't see that being I suppose a relevant fear anytime soon. Would you be in agreement?
And like, I don't know, like there's so many, I guess, Eastern publishers that will only publish to like a PC and PlayStation as well. So like, I don't know what Microsoft could have done to try to like, like obviously they have some sort of thing going on with Sega and like Yakuza and that kind of thing, but like, it's keeping it competitive. And like there's so much to talk about here, but like I think Xbox has had a really good strategy this gen to hopefully push Sony to be more competitive and to do more things and to take more risks and to like and that to me only benefits us, the people who play the games, because we're just like getting all these cool things happening as opposed to like Killzone 27 and Halo Infinite. Oh, okay, Halo Infinite is a thing, but you know what I mean.
Well done.
And like, I don't think there's any, there's nothing. Like there's no Windows XP or something. Like I don't even, that doesn't even make sense, but you get what I mean. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that's like constricting us. Like we just the Steam Deck's coming out and it's a good time to, but it's not a good time to be us because we're kind of in this weird COVID crunch where like we're not getting a lot of cool games and stuff, but like publishers and developers are aligning to, be able to produce good things in the coming years when all this settles down, I think is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I just generally like the industry is positioned better than it ever has been. All the consoles are selling out. PC gaming is exploding. We're seeing Steam Deck come out as well, and I can't point to any material downside to any of these acquisitions so far, right? Like we haven't seen any loss in headcount from any of these studios, right? In fact, we just see hirings and job listings go up for all of them. So there is a real appetite from all these companies involved in investing into gaming, that they're there to stay and play in the space. They're not trying to just pick up IP and just dissolve the teams and that's it. So for the moment I don't think there's much to be scared of.
I know this is niche, but like we've seen like a partnership. I don't think it was a full acquisition of like Activision Blizzard and Bungie for Destiny, and like as easily as that I guess came about, and two games, like two amazing, like I love a Destiny, the two of those games came out, like that is easily, air quotes, as that was produced, it like easily was dissolved, and now
Right,
Bungie's like, no, we're doing it ourselves. So like hopefully there is, if developers are feeling completely like suppressed or something, they have some sort of exit strategy to emancipate themselves. And if they feel like that, I hope they do that. And
and I'm sure like he's hoping the studio heads have sort of negotiated that as well for the benefit of their team. But I think to the other early point as well, we'll just find out in a couple of years how this is all played out and whether it's been for the betterment of the industry. I think all signs point to it being that way. Anyway, we'll dive now into our final topic of the show, and that is question time. We bring into question one big topic, trend or theme within the games industry, and really detail and dissect it. And the topic we want to tackle this week is inspired by a piece from Christopher Dring over at Video Games Chronicle. He has penned an opinion piece titled "With Switch OLED, Nintendo continues to do the bare minimum." Right now, Nintendo fans feel like it's giving its fans much at all beyond what it needs to. I won't read the whole article. In fact, I should actually link it in chat so you can all read it yourself. I will quickly jump down and scan through a couple of the more salient points as well. Let's see here. He notes, Switch OLED is in keeping with how Nintendo has always done its handhelds, and although we've had slightly better upgrades in the past, like with the likes of DSi and new Nintendo 3DS, in reality, few developers bothered to use the extra functionality, so why bother going to the extra effort? It's not as if a 4K Switch can compete with PS5 and Xbox Series X anyway, might as well stick to what works. He says, but as someone who has ordered the device, I can't help but feel a little bit underwhelmed. Nintendo has done the bare minimum to secure my patronage and nothing more. It reminds me of last year's Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection, the crown jewel in Nintendo's 35th Mario Anniversary celebration and its biggest Christmas release of last year. Nintendo knew that people would be happily pay full price to replay 3 of its greatest games, and it was right. It was a set of games that I knew I'd spend all Christmas playing. 65 hours of platforming goodness. It was the easiest £50 I ever spent, and over 9 million other gamers agreed. He says, Nintendo didn't need to give me more than that to convince me to buy it, but I had still expected something else. A boss rush mode, perhaps, a few bits of cut content, a couple of documentaries, a limited edition pin. Nope. Outside of a few soundtracks, it was the barest of packages. This isn't a criticism of Nintendo's penchant for porting, bringing back games, particularly Wii U titles. It is a sensible way to plug gaps in the release schedule, and Nintendo has gone the extra yard with those. I want to scroll down to the bottom now, where I know he had a piece that I want to touch on, and that was regarding the most recent Skyward Sword port. He said, Nintendo doesn't feel like it's giving its fans much at all beyond what it needs to. Its big release of the American Summer is a HD enhanced port of the 2011 Wii game, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. It's a decent title that's been improved, but it's not enough. It's got enough gameplay in it, but it again feels like a minimal effort. There's the controversy around the expensive amiibo as well, Steve, $35 or something like that for fast travel. Yeah. How are you feeling about Nintendo? Like, they had a raging, start to the beginning of this generation, well, their generation, I should say, with the Switch in 2017. It's gone on to sell more than 4 million units in the space of 4 years, which is the same amount that the 360 sold in 8 years, which still to this day blows my mind. But I don't know, I feel like the Switch fan base has been wanting for at least the past 12 months, where they haven't had a lot of clarity on what's coming. So yeah, is this opinion, you think, something you can back or at least understand?
Well, he is dunking on Nintendo at the same time admitting that he has already pre-ordered one,
right.
a Nintendo Switch OLED edition, which, by the way, is the worst name for a thing ever. And then he also just was like, if you gave me a pin, I would be cool with this.
Yeah, not the best example of like a quality 30th anniversary edition. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just really loves pins. We don't. You know how popular those PAX pins are, Steve? They go off.
Like, so no, I think Nintendo is absolutely resting on its laurels. I think it's only made worse by the fact that we had rumors of a 4K Switch for the last, I don't know, a year or so, which I think is like I'm not a huge Nintendo person anymore. I had a Wii, I loved it, like I was all about bowling and stuff. Wii U, didn't hit it for me.
The handhelds though, have you been on board with 3DS as well, or not really?
Yeah, I had a 3DS. Like I love myself some Phoenix Wright and stuff, but I don't know. Like I think that the biggest problem with the Switch right now is that you look at things like Overwatch or like Apex Legends or The Witcher. It's just like it's not powerful enough to run these things properly. So if we had an iteration of the Switch that could, like, and they're always like half a generation behind, I guess. Like it's just like, oh, it's close to this. Like it almost can do what your Xbox or your PlayStation can, and this is a new version which doesn't give you any extra power. So it's always just going to be behind. So, and like now that the Steam Deck's coming out, like it's kind of the same thing. Not that we can get in Australia. So like I do think that Nintendo is doing their own thing, and to some extent that's good, but to another extent it's like I'm not on board because I can have a better experience unless it's a Mario or a Mario Kart or a Zelda somewhere else. So I can't justify the purchase. And like and I'm not gonna get one. But Ben Salter, friend of the show, friend of your show too, probably, like is gonna get one because he has an original Switch with a horrible battery. And like some people will be like, oh well, it has a LAN port now, so like I guess I'll get it. And some people will be like, oh, it has no LED screen, so I guess I'll get it because of that. It's like $540. You can get an Xbox Series S, for less than that price, which doesn't have the Nintendo games but can play a majority of other games better.
A bit more. You get yourself a digital PS5, right?
Yeah, I can't justify the price. But like people are like, it's awful, but I'm gonna get one, and I'm like, well, okay, like that's why Nintendo keeps doing it, because you don't care enough to get mad at them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, similar to you, I haven't really been a massive Nintendo fan. Like that's where my gaming love started, way back on my cousins had the Nintendo or the NES. I had a SNES. Still one of my favorite games of all time is Yoshi's Island. Then I had a 64 and fell in love with Perfect Dark and Banjo-Kazooie and Diddy Kong Racing. I was more of a Diddy Kong Racing fan than a Mario Kart fan, I will admit.
That's weird, but okay.
Yeah,
well, I'll
allow. It was a rare household here. I don't know. My parents just didn't buy the Nintendo published games. It was all the rare stuff, oddly enough. But yeah, and then that's when I jumped over to Xbox with Halo, and the rest is history. My interaction with Nintendo became via my Pokemon machine, which was either the Game Boy or the DS, depending what you were talking about. So yeah, I enjoyed some things on the Wii, and I had a Switch, though I sold it when we went into the dark times, into COVID, and I wasn't traveling, so yeah, I spent most of my time on PC and Xbox. So yeah, like for me, like there just hasn't been, Nintendo hasn't shown me why, you know, as an adult gamer, they're deserving of my money, right? Or like why I need to invest in this ecosystem. If there was like maybe a compelling subscription offer like Game Pass that gave me access to all their new titles and some of their back catalog, yeah, I would probably jump on board, because I'm a very social gamer as well. I love playing multiplayer with friends. But yeah, I just look at it and I think to myself, what new have you done like in the last decade that I can really point to as just like, oh yeah, that was the thing that Nintendo sort of come along and really innovated with from a software perspective, right? You know, I think some people would argue Animal Crossing, though that's a storied franchise that has really just now hit the big time, I think thanks in part to COVID. But yeah, like they're really not, they're just not speaking to the type of gamer I am. And so I think from my personal perspective, I see them and think, yeah, they are resting on their laurels. I think maybe a hardcore Nintendo fan would look at them and say, it was like, well, here's X, Y, and Z reasons, you know, why they continue to innovate and provide new things. But I think particularly in the context against the other platform holders, I don't think you can, their own innovation holds a candle to what Xbox has been doing to innovate, or PlayStation has been doing to innovate for that matter. So yeah, I totally see this, and you see the reaction from the Nintendo fans, this OLED model announcement, and you can't help but think like, yeah, what is Nintendo doing for their fan base? And that's kind of like also where I want to take this conversation as well, is the role that a first party has in, I suppose, shaping the identity of their platform, right? Like third party will fill out the rest and, you know, fill the gaps, I suppose, for content for the audience. But I think you look at PlayStation as defining the PlayStation experience now as these amazing story-based cinematic experiences. You look at Xbox with, you know, Game Pass and the value and variety that they provide there. And I think, you know, to Nintendo, they are nailing on the head with a lot of their experiences, like Zelda and like 3D Mario games in recent history. But yeah, I can't help but feel like they could definitely be doing more. And to your point as well, you're going to be pushing these companies to be doing better, right? Like we just spoke about that with EA. I think to criticize Nintendo for the same thing is only fair.
Yeah, well, like, so Nintendo's always done its own thing, and like, well, not always. Yeah, like the 3DS and the Game Boy, like that's its own thing. But like I think this really came into focus with the Wii, because it was such a departure from like a traditional game experience. And then the Wii U, and then the Switch did it again. But so they're kind of like off doing their own thing, and there's not a competitor. And maybe like a Steam Deck will come in and change that. Which is like a whole different like kettle of fish, really. Like we could talk about the Steam Deck for probably like another hour, so like I'm cutting that off right there. Nintendo, Xbox was like the leader of the pack with 360, and that, you know, like you get complacent, so you come up with Xbox One, you're like, we're gonna do TV, and that was horrible. And PlayStation's taken over, and then like it works to our advantage, because Xbox got too big for its britches, PlayStation took over, PlayStation's like, we're the best thing ever, and then we're like, cross-play and cross-progression, and Sony's like, no, we don't need to do that, and everyone's like, no, you should definitely do that, please do that. And Nintendo, or Microsoft, there's too many players in this game, Microsoft's like, you know, we'll do it, because we need the wins, we'll do it. And then like, and Game Pass and all that, so like we're all benefiting from these shifts and this need to innovate. So if you get complacent, I think you'll pay for it in the end. And I think PlayStation's kind of starting to see that happen. Like they're like, oh, we have really pretty games. Like they're 130 Australian. You want them, right? Cool. You got to buy them. Like if you want to get it on PC, you got to buy it on PC too. But like that's cool. You don't mind. And Xbox is like, you buy it once, you got it here. You can do it on here. You can get it on your phone. You get a browser, do it here. And that has to make Sony reassess what it's doing and do something to counter that. And then Microsoft will have to figure out what its counter is. And I think that's healthy and normal. I kind of applaud Nintendo for not getting sucked into that to some extent, but at the same extent, like I will not like you, and I will critique you when you put out a $30 or whatever it was amiibo to fast travel in a game that's 10 years old. Like, come on. Like, that's so.
Yeah, I can't
Play
say.
by the rules.
Yeah, you spoke about, demanding better from these companies, and I think, all the criticism that Xbox got was certainly fair. I kind of wish we saw more directed at, Nintendo when they don't deliver, right? Like, I feel as though if the fan base were to speak up and demand better, and I feel the same way about Sony as well, right? With the $70 first party games and not supporting crossplay as well. To your point, like, they get the winners sort of puff up their chest and they march into the next generation thinking they're king shit, and ultimately they're knocked down a peg. Well, at least that's history has shown that, right, with PS2 to PS3 and then 360 to Xbox One. So I like that all three platform holders seem marching to the beat of their own drum and finding success in what they're doing. I just think there's always room for improvement, and I think being vocal with your criticism has only shown the great things that can come of that, right? With Xbox backflipping on the Xbox Live Gold price hike in less than 24 hours. And I wish we saw that from PlayStation fans when Sony came out and announced that increase in price, but I don't know,
and
they're okay with it. So.
To 2K for like a price hike on NBA 2K, and like it's.
Or and EA for the upgrade paths as well for some of their games, and
and we need to, like, I like like accessibility. I like there are some things that the industry is doing that are very amazing, and then like you look at an Ubisoft who's like, we're still going to put out AAA games, but we're going to do a whole bunch of free to play things with microtransactions, like, because you can just see that's like, we want to make money however we can, and like you can see decisions in this industry which are like, we want your money, as opposed to we hope that you're enjoying yourself and you choose to give us money to continue that. And I think that, speaking for behalf of every gamer ever, I think we're happier with the latter option. Like, we'll pay you if there's something that's cool, but like if you're just trying to nickel and dime us, like, I think we're all getting smart enough to realize when that's happening, and hopefully we're gonna fight back, because boo.
I think that's another topic I'd like to tackle on the show again, and I think look, maybe my perspective on this is a bit clouded or biased because I was working at Ubisoft and I see the great experience that something like Siege can deliver when it is ultimately surviving on microtransactions, but I look at it and I think to myself, look, like, all of this is optional. You could buy the game for $20 or $30 right now, less when it's on sale, and never spend a dime and have the exact same gameplay experience that I'm having, and even though I'm spending a lot of money in a game like that.
100% a different like a Siege scenario is a completely different scenario to like X Defiant, which I like my eyes couldn't roll back in my head far enough when they announced it. And like it's just like, no, why? Like, just new Splinter Cell, yes,
right.
That's an example of give us something cool that we want, as opposed to just like a completely like economy like focused thing. But like, sorry, I'm totally sidetracking this conversation.
No, but what I was just trying to get to also is the fact that we spoke of the quality experiences and also the games that are so obviously designed to be taking your money. I think it's probably fair to say, like, the ones that succeed, I think for the most part, and I'll put mobile games on a completely different shelf when I say this, is that it's the ones that are still fun and offer a great experience that are successful and stick around. Like, no one's arguing the quality of the game that Fortnite is, right? Like, it is a fun, well-designed experience. The team at Epic have done great with that game. Same thing with Respawn and Apex, like Minecraft, like Roblox, like any massive games as a service. The ones that are doing well are designed really well. And we're seeing like a great groundswell of positivity right now around Final Fantasy XIV and the time and money and sort of effort that Square has put in to sort of get that game back on track. It wasn't in a great place like 5 years ago. So yeah, I think again, completely different side topic on the games as a service thing and microtransactions. Hopefully we'll have that on the show one day. But yeah, look, I kind of agree with Christopher here in the fact that Nintendo does seem to be resting on their laurels. They've been getting away with doing the bare minimum for a very long time, right? And it seems like Nintendo fans are really happy with that, and anyone who's not a hardcore Nintendo fan, like a casual Switch owner, they kind of are happy with like the Mario Kart every now and then and the Zelda and other things. So I can't critique them for looking at their own business and saying, do we really need to be, delivering everything that our fans are demanding right now? We saw the rumors as well of like Metroid Prime HD Trilogy just being held on. It's done, but it's like they're waiting for more time to pass, and when fans start to get angry again, maybe we'll throw it to, it's like throwing crumbs to the pigeons, like we'll just placate them for a bit longer.
You can demand more of something that you like without being a jerk about it as well. So I guess like take that, and I've probably been a jerk the entire hour and a half, but yeah, like there is a way of phrasing your displeasure with a company without like being abusive. So like also keep that in mind, please.
No, definitely. Yes. Should always be respectful on the internet, no matter what example the rest of the people on the internet are giving right
Definitely
now.
happens. 100% all the time happens. No one needs a reminder of that. It's fine. Everybody's lovely.
Anyway, we're going to wrap up the episode there. That has been question time. Again, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, please let us know what you think of Nintendo and whether they're resting on their laurels or not in the comments below. Don't forget you can follow myself on Twitter as well, at magic_cast. I will now pass it to Steve to plug all the things that he has going on in the world of video games.
At Stevivor.com, which is like Steve and Survivor. It's a mixture of the words. I should have rebranded, but it's far too late now. And I'm on social media as SWrightAU because my name is Steve Wright and I am in Australia, though I don't sound like it.
Smart. On brand. I love it. Consistency. I have like some of my magic cast, some of it's underscore cast, like because someone else has got magic cast. It's really annoying. I
used to be Stevivor on everything, but then I gave it to the website, and that was just I had to rebrand myself individually, and that's the best I could come up with, which I'm sure there were better options.
Anyway, yes, head to Stevivor.com, check out all the fantastic coverage Steve has going on, particularly the interview, his interview with the Double Fine guys, Tim Schafer and the rest of the team.
Scott.
Yeah, and also the Friendly Fire show. That's your fortnightly podcast, is that right, Steve? They can catch that on all the services.
Fortnightly-ish, yeah, close enough.
Ish. I listened to the most recent episode. It was great. You should listen to it. It's on Spotify. That's how I listened to it on my my coffee stroll this afternoon. So.
Aww.
Anyway,
it was so much fun being here. Thank you so much for having me. I had an absolute blast.
No, my pleasure. It's I've been wanting to do this for years, and finally I am able to. It's good to be on this side of the fence and actually discuss the games with you. I feel as though limited contact with you via email. This is way more fun. So. Thank you, Steve, for catching up and for joining me. This has been The Question Box. You can catch us every Friday, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, right here, twitch.tv/magic_cast. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you next time.